Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for stopping by the channel. To the new viewers, I appreciate you checking me out. Hopefully, you watch some of my videos and get intrigued. Hit the subscribe button. Everybody else, welcome back. I appreciate you as always. This is not a long video. Today, I just want to do something special, right? I want to introduce you to some correctional officers. Wouldn't that be nice? With everything going on in the prison system right now and people bashing correctional officers and people bashing the prison system, we should hear what some correctional officers have to say. Don't you think that's fair? We got to be fair, right? So let me introduce you to a few correctional officers. Sit back, relax, enjoy the little morning show. Not a long video at all, but here we go. The first correctional officer I will introduce you to is Giselle Barritos from Rikers Island. She took bribes. She brought in cocaine, marijuana, and K2 for thousands of dollars. She was arrested. How about Charles Epps from Buffalo, New York? He stole $35,000 in workman's comp and $16,000 in Social Security benefits. That's Charles Epps. How about Correctional Officer Stephen A. Frank, age 47? He was found guilty of beating his wife in front of his children. What about the Brooklyn correctional officers? Stephen Conge, Monica Coxum, Eduardo Trinidad, right? Nice to meet them. You guys happy to meet them? They were all arrested for fraud. They took salaries as they were on sick leave for over a year. They deliberately violated their oath. How about Correctional Officer Rasheen Smalls? Would you like to meet Correctional Officer Rasheen Smalls? Criminal sexual act in the third. This is what he was arrested for. While he was on duty, having the females perform oral sex on him in the bathroom. Rashid Smalls wouldn't do anything wrong to a prisoner, right? No way. I can't believe that. I can't believe that. What about Correctional Officer Giuseppe Mandara, arrested for aggravated assault for the beating death of Daryl Smith in 2019 in a treatment center? No charges were filed on him. No homicide charges were filed. He did go away. Correctional Officer Giuseppe Mandara. He wouldn't beat anyone, right? He's good. He's one of the good officers that you guys talk about. Some of you in the comments. Oh, maybe it's possible. I don't know. What about Correctional Officer Melissa Dixon, promoting prison contraband, rape, criminal sex act? This is recent, 2024. Riverhead Correctional Facility. She was bringing in drugs and weapons for the prisoners, having sex with the prisoners. I doubt she would ever falsify a report, right? Against the prisoner. Do you think she would stick someone in solitary confinement unjustly? If she's having sex with the prisoners and bringing in drugs and weapons, she wouldn't put someone in solitary, though. I don't know. She wouldn't do that. She wouldn't do that. What about, well, you want to step over to Philadelphia? You think it's just in New York? What about Roddick Price, Correctional Officer Roddick Price? And Christina Ingram. Criminal conspiracy, controlled substances, bringing in cell phones, bringing in drugs. Those are good correctional officers right there. Those are the ones. Those are the ones you got to give the salary raise to, Governor. And then we can step over to New Jersey if you want. How about this one? Sergeant Michael Emmons. Correctional Officer Christopher Toth. Correctional Officer Mark Sadlowski. Correctional Officer Raymond Quinones, Correctional Officer Michael Gaines, and Correctional Officer Michael Ambrosatis. False reports to justify the use of force, official misconduct, and tampering with public records. What they were doing was beating up prisoners and then changing the reports. They would definitely not do anything wrong to a prisoner, right? They wouldn't stick a prisoner in solitary confinement, would they? Those officers. Can we consider them good officers if they falsified reports and they were tampering with public records? What about Brooklyn Correctional Officer James Intanoka? Stole $171,000 in overtime. He stole $171,000 in overtime for that he never worked. He would definitely not do anything wrong to a prisoner. We could go to Rikers Island. Correctional Officer Mark Johnson. Made $144,328 last year, $48,262 in overtime until they found a box of contraband in his locker. Downstate Correctional Facility. You ready for this one? I need to take a sip of my coffee for this one, people. I love you people who say correctional officers don't do nothing wrong. Huh? And again, it sounds like I'm murdering or beating up correctional officers by saying this. I'm just stating some facts. Don't hate me for reading facts. Downstate Correctional. 5 officers brutally beating the prisoner, then attempting to cover it up on prisoner Kevin Moore. They beat him with batons. They kicked him. They punched him. They ripped dreadlocks out of his head. And then the officer can be heard saying, "I am keeping this as a trophy." He had 5 broken ribs and a collapsed lung. The officers later hit themselves with their batons and nightsticks so it can look like Kevin Moore injured them. Think I'm making this up? I'm not making up Sergeant Kathy Scott. I'm not making up CO Carson Morris. I'm not making up CO Donald Kossman. And I'm not making up CO Andrew Lowry, who ripped the dreads out of a man's head and said they were keeping them as trophies, falsified the reports, broke his ribs and collapsed his lung. Do you think these officers right here that I just mentioned, they wouldn't stick someone in solitary unjustly, right? They wouldn't do that. You think they would abuse solitary confinement if they're fracturing people's ribs and lungs? Right? Do you think sticking a man in solitary for a year for something he didn't do would be too much for them? This is why you cannot leave solitary decisions up to the hands of correctional officers. How about 2 correctional officers in New Jersey sexually assaulting a teen in juvenile? Gary Nieves, age 53, and William Young, age 35, sexually assault an 18-year-old girl who was still in juvenile by sticking a mop stick inside of her. Those are good officers, great officers. Maybe you'd like them to marry your daughter. How about 4 Missouri officers, correctional officers, charged with murder of a prisoner who was in restraints, who was completely restrained. This was in the Jefferson City Correctional Facility. They put a hood over his head, covering his nose and his mouth, and then threw him in a closet for a half hour until he suffocated and died. That was CO Justin Leggins, CO Jacob Case, CO Aaron Brown, CO Gregory Warner, all charged with murder. No gang mentality there, right? No gang mentality in that one. You see what happens when they get together? How about, let me hear in the comments how good they are. You want to tell me in the comments that the prisoners are the bad ones? Yeah, I'm not saying that the prisoners are angels, but don't just point out the prisoners as being the piece of garbage. You go anywhere. This is a supervisor, Mr. Burks, in Alabama prison, who stood there and watched a correctional officer Ulysses Oliver Jr. I'm sure Ulysses Oliver Sr. is very proud of him, probably is proud of him. They beat a handcuffed prisoner with their hands, with their feet, and with baton. In that state, they killed 6 prisoners that year. What about 3 Miami-Dade correctional officers? They got 20 years for a deadly beating on a prisoner. Christopher Rowland, Kirk Walton, Jeffrey Godbolt. They all turned into rats on the case, too, to rat out their fellow officer, Ronald Connor, which was a crazy case because the one that they ratted out, Ronald Connor, didn't do a day in jail. He went free, and all 3 of them got 20 years. They killed 60-year-old Ronald Ingram in 2022 during the beating, broke all his ribs. Great officers. You want to have them home for Christmas dinner? Or you want to go over to California? Correctional Officer Gregory Rodriguez, 97 counts, convicted of 64 sexual abuse charges, raped 13 women in prison as he was a correctional officer, 57 felonies. This is just my little morning video. I didn't put any work into this. I just did 20 minutes of study. I shouldn't, a little longer than that, a couple hours of looking at the behavior of correctional officers throughout the country. What's crazy is 90% of them are in New York. They're bad in New York, boy. They're bad. So for you people, individuals, citizens that just stand behind correctional officers because they wear a uniform and have the title officer, you're stupid. You're ignorant. You're incompetent. You're a moron, and you're a jerk off. Right? That's what I'm telling you. That these officers abuse, beat, murder, kill prisoners on a regular basis. That is 4 pages. You want to see something? That is 4 pages. Look at this. 4 pages of 500. 500. Right? Hundreds of pages of the behavior of correctional officers. I think they need to be looked at a little better. I don't think, after hearing just a couple of incidences, I was writing that by hand last night, so I didn't print it out on my printer or anything. I wrote those cases down by hand, so I was up for hours writing that down and studying the cases. And then, of course, I got lost in some of the cases and was reading about them and really reading about the true abuse that the prisoners were suffering at the hands of these correctional officers all over the United States of America, and especially in New York, right? But how can you leave the decision for prisoners to be put in solitary confinement in the hands of these people? How can you, that's insanity. That's insanity. That you're leaving the torture of people up to people who love to torture people. So the few bad apples thing can go out the window. The structure of the prison system needs to be changed. The education of correctional officers needs to change. The psychology in which correctional officers approach the confrontation with prisoners needs to be changed into one of rehabilitation, into one of social work, into one of a therapeutic community. And that is not the correctional officer's fault. That is the system's fault. The system needs to change. The entire structure, psychologically, of the way they deal with situations needs to change. Excuse me. And you know what I forgot to mention in that list? The beating death of Robert Brooks. That has to be added to that list. Because that was 11 on 1, or whatever it was. And the one that happened in Mid-State, that's still under investigation, where there's 9 witnesses that saw officers stomp one prisoner to death. So I was trying to enjoy my morning coffee, and I figured I would introduce you to a few of the wonderful, excellent, beautiful correctional officers that we have. And if you think that prisons are not being abused, let me ask you this question. Let me end with this. For those of you, I'm not saying a lot of my viewers, but I do have viewers that love correctional officers. I love them too. If the guy is a good dude, goes in there, clocks in, does his job, and doesn't abuse anyone and follows the rules and the regulations of the Department of Corrections, and then clocks out at the end of the day and goes home, he's fine. I won't say I love him, but I like that guy. But let me ask you this. is that the system itself, I'm sorry, what I meant to say is that those of you that think that the prisoners are just the bad guys, it doesn't work like that. I'm giving you evidence. I'm giving you facts about the way that officers approach situations with aggression, with intimidation, with fear, because they believe they have to. Right? This is basically what they taught when they go through the academy to become a correctional officer. Right? And the teaching in that academy needs to change. I'm not saying to coddle prisoners. I'm not saying to pamper prisoners. Right? They committed crimes. There's some dangerous guys in there, murderers, robbers, home invaders. I'm not saying to pamper these dudes. I'm saying to educate them. I'm saying to work on changing them. And trying to intimidate them, trying to scare them, only kicks in the fight or flight instinct. That's what happens when you scare someone. They either want to fight with you or flight or take flight. And in prison, they can't take flight. It's not possible to take flight. They're locked in prison. So when an officer scares a prisoner and it's fight or flight, what choice does he have? Especially when that officer is torturing him and pushing him and pushing him. And then a lot of times it's for no reason. I'm closing this. I'm coming to a close right now. You guys have a good day, all right? And I'll talk with you soon.